Anyway. If you could just say your name from right to left, yes. And? Very good, thank you very much. There's another, yes? Eddie Ila, okay. Another one? I think they're finished. Where are the ladies? I knew. I stand guilty as charged. The Kenya Proposed Development Plan 2030 to 2060. In January 2026, His Excellency the President, William Samoei Ruto, the President of the Republic of Kenya, announced to the nation that he would be requesting me to take leadership in the preparation of a national development strategy whose implementation would result in the transformation of Kenya into a modern democratic state, whose citizens enjoy standards of living comparable to those prevalent in the developed countries. An onerous task. Earlier in November 2025, His Excellency the President had shared with Kenyans that he was grappling with the issue of the future of Kenya. For the next 30 to 50 years, especially with the looming end of the Vision 2030, which was inaugurated in 2008, is set to expire in 2028. On that occasion, the President announced that the start of an elaborated long-term program for investment in infrastructure necessary for the transition of Kenya from its current status as a lower middle-income country to a first-world economy within the next generation. I took the President's request as a privilege to play a role in making our country transition from its current status as a lower middle-income economy to a modern, industrialized, and high-income economy. In embarking on this mission, I was concerned, as the President definitely is, and as every Kenyan should be, that Kenyans must now make a major transformational change that would eliminate the major handicaps identified at independence as follows: poverty, lack of adequate learning, and access to modern healthcare for all. We as a country face more competition than before. Nations that were next to us and across the continent are investing in massive infrastructure projects and programs that should concern us are perhaps leaving us behind. We are losing markets to our competitors in exports and tourism. In any case, merely being dominant in the region is not good enough for Kenya. Kenya's peers like Singapore have overcome the world.
All right.
They are the ones we should be aiming
when we come back,
at
we are coming
catching
back
up
with the last leg of this conversation.
I agree with His
and
Excellency the
we are
President's
still
belief
with Meshach
that a
Bunga.
developed nation status in 30 to 40 years is achievable by Kenya. I believe it is possible for a Kenyan being born in the next few years to be the last of our citizens to live in what is called a third world or a developing country. This is an achievable Kenyan aspiration. The document we present to the President today, as you see it on the board there, outlines the first steps towards the preparation of the plan for the transition to the first world. This is definitely not the first time the country is being called upon to embrace a long-term vision for transformation. In the 1980s, the Ministry of National Planning and Regional Development prepared a long-term development program with the support of the government
This
of Canada.
is unachievable.
The plans
Kenyan
failed to take
aspiration.
off because of the structural
The document we present
and
to the
decline in
President
living
today, as you
standards
see,
that Kenyans experienced in that period. It took the victory of the National Rainbow Coalition, NAC, in the 2002 elections for the country to make a fresh first start. I had the privilege of being the Minister for Planning and National Development in President Mwai Kibaki's government from 2003 to 2005. As minister, it became clear to me that with the right policies and full political backing, Kenya could make rapid economic recovery. And indeed it did, raising GDP growth from 3% to a record 8% in 2007. This was primarily the result of the implementation of the Kenya Economic Recovery Strategy for Wealth and Employment Creation. That ran between 2002 and 2007. Once recovery was achieved, the ministry, under the guidance of the National Economic and Social Council, NESC, set about preparing a long-term development strategy that would have seen Kenya make the transition to a middle-income, rapidly industrializing nation. And I remember David Ndii was very much involved with us in that NESC initiative from my office. This is what gave birth to the Kenya Vision 2030, which was inaugurated in 2008 and expires within the next few years. Unbelievable how time flies. The conclusion of Vision 2030 presents us with an opportunity to take stock of the hits and misses under this historic plan and to begin to chart a new long-term development pathway. To move forward, it is both necessary and useful to reflect on the experiences that have shaped our development journey over the past decades. A key lesson learned and captured in the plan we present is that nations do not become prosperous by accident. They do so because they learn from their successes and failures, build institutions capable of sustaining progress, and develop a shared national purpose and ideal that survives changes in political leadership. Let me repeat that. A key lesson learned and captured in the plan we present is that nations do not become prosperous by accident. They do so because they learn from their successes and failures, build institutions capable of sustaining progress, and develop a shared national purpose and ideal that survives changes in political leadership. Another lesson captured here is that Kenya cannot and does not need to duplicate or copy and paste development. Let me repeat. Kenya cannot and does not need to duplicate or copy and paste development. Kenya has to develop in her own fashion, taking cognizance of her unique characteristics, challenges, weaknesses, and strengths. And if we learned anything out of our recent prosperous years from 2002, it is that development requires national unity and social cohesion, political stability, effective government, in short, a strong state, and national pride and confidence. People with no pride or confidence in their country cannot be expected to develop it. We emphasize in this report that development is not just about economics. Kenya was doing very well in terms of GDP when the violence erupted after the 2007 elections. It turned out that despite economic growth, Kenyans were concerned about inclusion and exclusion in the economy. They were concerned about poverty and inequality along income, regional, and gender lines. The youth were frustrated by the absence of comprehensive strategies to tackle widespread unemployment, poverty, and historical economic imbalances that disproportionately affected the younger generation. Economic growth appeared to enhance rather than diminish regional imbalances, and became a source of tension and weakness in national development. We emphasize that to develop sustainably, we must build a nation that is united and has a sense of common and shared destiny, an ethnically integrated nation that is fair in its dealings with citizens, a nation with strong moral and ethical values, one that is democratic, liberal, tolerant, caring, equitable, and progressive. We must be intentional about establishing a scientific government that believes in pursuit of innovation and is forward-looking. We must not only consume technology, but we must also be a contributor to the scientific and technological advancement, not only of our country, but also of the human race as a whole. We must grow not only economically, but also politically, socially, culturally, and quite importantly, psychologically. A defeatist attitude that we are too poor, too divided, too small, or too young to develop can be a major hindrance to our takeoff as a nation. Worse still is the belief that it cannot be done. At all times, we must have faith and confidence in ourselves. Like Mwalimu Julius Nyerere once said, "It can be done. Play your part." I'm sure you remember the song. Mwalimu kasema, "It can be done. Play your part." A network of strong and efficient public institutions with a life that transcends the nature, the tenor of political parties in power is of absolute necessity. A network of strong and efficient public institutions with a life that transcends the tenure of political parties in power is of absolute necessity. Furthermore, our country needs a planning agency that coordinates a vast array of the infrastructural projects and that pursues reforms in the productive sectors that will make use of the infrastructure. And indeed, infrastructure is I would say, the key aspect or the backbone of development. The agency will also oversee adherence to physical planning and social and economic activities that will improve the quality of life in a way that ordinary citizens can truly appreciate. It is worth repeating that such an agency will be aided in its work by the National Economic and Social Council, NESC. The constant evaluation of the implementation of the key goals, measuring of results and change in strategy as necessary must be a constant preoccupation of this policy and strategy unit. This aspiration is ambitious, but I have no doubt that it is achievable. Many countries like the People's Republic of China that are today regarded as developed were within living memory poor agrarian societies like Kenya. It is known that about 60 years ago, Singapore dispatched a delegation to Kenya to learn from our development experience. Then they went back and overtook us. South Korea, Singapore, Taiwan, Malaysia, and more recently China and Vietnam transformed themselves through deliberate policy choices, capable institutions, and political commitment to transformation over several decades. Perhaps the single most important lesson to be learned from our planning experience since 1963 is the need for sustained political support for the overall national development vision, regardless of political party and across the electoral cycles. This support must be transformed into a nationally shared passion that citizens can be proud of and identified with. We must agree to make the difficult choices in resource allocation that will enable our country to realize the ambitious programs. We must be deliberate in investing in industrialization, higher productivity in agriculture, and mass employment in quality service sector jobs. I repeat, quality service sector jobs. There's some jobs in service sector which are not quality. I won't mention them, but there they are. To make that transition, we must institutionalize and honor the fundamentals that have served every successful newly industrialized country. That is, a politically stable state with an efficient civil service, the rule of law, zero tolerance for indiscipline in social life, macroeconomic stability, and a sustainable public debt. We must pursue first world infrastructure, widespread access to education and health services, jobs, and quality housing for all. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, such commitments cannot lead to concrete and positive outcome without leaders in whom people believe and who, in turn, sustain confidence through performance. The UN population predicts that Kenya will have a majority urban population from the year 2050. The proposed plan must take that into account as a central feature of its objective. From the layout of infrastructure to the provision of education, housing, and health services, the long-term plan will be guided by the overarching reality of an imminent majority urban population in 3 decades. Finally, national takeoff needs a committed, relentless, and unapologetic champion. South Korea had Park Chung-hee. Malaysia had Dr. Mahathir Mohamad. And Singapore had Lee Kuan Yew. It is time for Kenya to have our own. Thank you very much. And before I call Professor Chega to come forward, Mike, where are you? Yeah. You are here. Okay, come. So Mike, let me also introduce others. I wonder whether I did introduce them. The team. Can you stand up again? You are scattered all over. Just stand up and come over. My team, please, don't be shy. They are here. I don't know why they're sitting down. They're all here. Come, please. So that people see you. And Mike will speak on behalf of the team. Mike, can you introduce yourself? Yeah, just introduction.
Professor Michael Chege, part of this team, currently part-timer, University of Nairobi, where I've taught most of my life. I've taught outside the country. Was an advisor, Treasury, Vision 2030, from 2003 to 2013. And I'm very pleased to be here, Your Excellency, as you know, in this task.
Karute Kanyinga, professor at the University of Nairobi Institute for Development Studies, where I specialize in governance and development. Thank you.
George Okongo, an economist who's worked with Professor Nyong'o for many years on most of these things.
I work for a lot of people in the country, but right now I work for Professor Nyong'o on this project. Thank you.
Done a lot of work on development currently with Professor Nyong'o in this team. I also work for an organization called the Nairobi. Thank you.
which are familiar with us. Why should a country like Vietnam be getting a greater share of that market compared to us? These are the questions we asked. And they are questions that Kenyans need to ask, and Kenyans are very, very fast-moving in taking opportunities. We believe that we are going to find a solution to this problem, Mr. President. Let me also say that the new trade partnership agreement with the United States also answers to these questions. We should move ahead with it. Whatever happens to AGOA or not, Kenya's access to these markets will be important. Mr. President, all these factors that we've brought into account that ought to be considered in the long-term plan are important because our country is predominantly young. We have young people who are very well educated and who are asking for quality jobs. A combination of investment.
That the new trade partnership agreement. To the United States also answers to these questions. We should move ahead with it. Whatever happens to AGOA or not, Kenya's success to these markets will be important. Mr. President, all these factors.
Domestic investment, foreign that's happening in the region that Kenyans feel to notice. First of all is the bad news. Because we're quite comfortable here. Kenyans tend to be quite comfortable with their perch. And forget that just right next door in Sudan is one of the largest humanitarian tragedies happening anywhere in the world right now. Yep. Which the Americans are part of, and the Europeans and so on. Ask ourselves where this leaves us as we look into the future. Mr. President, we looked at many instances like this in which competitiveness in the region could affect us adversely unless we act and act quickly. I just want to say, Mr. President, as I conclude here, and this is a global overview of the situation, that Kenyans are not quitters. We have been for a long time been seen as the lodestar of development in the region. We earned that reputation by hard work. by looking ahead, by determination, by grit, by doing the right thing at the right time, we can still do it. As Professor Nyong'o said, play your part, it can be done.